To be honest, I'm really excited waiting for chapter 24 to come out. But before that, allow me to share a little prediction for chapter 24, which will be released on the 20th of this month. Yeah, I'm Nim. I'd be really happy if you enjoy this, especially by giving me a like. So, first and foremost, based on the sequence in the previous chapter, which confirmed that Araya and Mitsuki split up their tasks, where Mitsuki, Konohamaru, and Sarada gathered at the designated point, instructed by Boruto, while Araya brought Yodo to the place where Shinki turned into a tree, this means the next scenario is a mission to bring Shinki back home. Now for the prediction. This is where something big might happen, which means Araya likely won't be able to free Shinki that easily. Maybe this sounds a bit far-fetched, but if you look at the final scene where Shinki and Gaara were in the same place after they were sealed, didn't you notice there were some claw grime around? So what I really mean is, even if Hidari or Mamushi don't appear to interfere with Araya's attempt to save Shinki, at the very least, there are probably a few claw grime guarding the place where Shinki and Gaara are sealed. And of course, Matsuri once said that the trees are everywhere, even underground. Information will be widely spread, which means that every divine tree human should logically have access to or be able to receive information through those trees, right? What do you guys think? But anyway, especially about Yodo, who confirmed a lot that she would die, it seems that since Himawari became more than just a Jinchuriki, but a Biju herself, as Kurama said, it's hard to easily conclude that Yodo died. Moreover, the affiliation between Konoha and Sunagakure is too close. In other words, whatever happens to the shinobi of Sunagakure, Konoha is the village that will save the ninja of Sunagakure first. And this culture has been applied since the Naruto era. So what this means is Yodo will not die and she will most likely live again because she was saved by Himawari. Because try to compare, guys. The wound that Inojin got, actually it was a pretty big fatal wound, right? While for Yodo, I think the wound she got was not as big and severe as Inojin. Moreover, there are some footage that makes a lot of speculation if Inojin returns to the mission, and of course he is not alone, right? But what do you think, guys? So this might also be what makes me think and ask about Delta. What is the reason Delta is not with Kawaki? I mean, why is Delta not backing up Kawaki? Apart from the option that Kawaki is now strong, Delta is a cyborg under the charm of Ida, who is always indirectly assigned to make sure Kawaki is always safe, and that at least as it happened in Chapter 8. But in this case, what does Delta really want to do? And based on my prediction, if Delta is not assigned to save and bring Sarada to Konoha first, then there should be another surprise where Hidari will return. Yeah, he returns to realize his desire to devour Sarada, who is currently in an unconscious state. So, in other words, Boruto, who has already seen some future options before from Koji, he planned another plan alone without involving Koji. Boruto, who deliberately instructed that the shinobi of Konoha and Suna gather at one point where they first met, there must be a reason, right? And the reason is to provide a possibility that if Boruto comes to the battlefield to save Konohamaru, it will distract or trigger Jura as well. Then instead, Hidari will appear, but not to help Jura, but for Sarada. Boruto knows that Sarada will be unconscious and faint. Therefore, by gathering it will provide a great possibility to thwart Hidari. Except, in the worst case scenario, Hidari can go solo against all of them and end up like the future line Koji showed if Hidari's hand seems to be pointing at Sarada. Like he wants to take the eye, right? But what do you guys think? But unfortunately, the short prediction that I just said earlier will most likely be an exception if indeed Chapter 24 only focuses on the battle between Jura and Kawaki, which means Chapter 24 will reveal the result of Kawaki without limiter against Jura. But somehow, even though Kawaki has removed his limiter, I still suspect that Kawaki will lose even with Jura, who has lost one of his Rinnegan eyes and one leg. And why can I be optimistic that Jura will win? This is all based on Koji's statement reminding that not to provoke Jura's anger. Especially Koji also stated that for now, no one can match his power, and that also makes me think. So far, we have always deified daemons, right? A little punk who has the power to reflect anything even if it's just a killing instinct. Is this a coincidence? Or is it real? Because with that statement, it makes me think that indirectly, Koji is stating that Jura has no opponent who can beat him even a daemon. Because so far, we haven't gotten an opponent who can beat daemon, right? Even Kawaki or Code, though, they look so loser in front of Damon. He can give resistance only with a killing instinct from his opponent. But no matter how strong a Damon is, I think Koji's statement seems to have represented or confirmed indirectly if indeed Jura is stronger than Damon. But what do you guys think? But speaking of Jura, Damons, and Kawaki, there are some exceptions that maybe this should be taken into consideration. Yeah, even though I know that this can't be a reference. Because actually the statement about not provoking Jura's anger because no one can defeat him, at least before Boruto changed the future and before he revealed the secret about Kawaki's power that had been modified by Amado. Yeah, because that statement about Jura was confirmed before Kawaki removed his limiter, right? But once again, for some reason, even though Kawaki currently has the upper hand by being able to corner Jura, I still believe Jura has some hidden potential. But maybe it's more like Jura is meant to show something he hasn't revealed at all yet. It feels like he still hasn't unleashed his true potential, right? After all, has Amado really removed Kawaki's limiter completely? Or did Amado keep a safety threshold while still maintaining Kawaki's durability? I feel like Amado wouldn't be foolish enough to fully eliminate Kawaki's restraints. Or perhaps Amado created a scenario where Kawaki would access his full strength and maximum potential, but only for a limited time. In other words, this time-based limiter could be a strategy as well as a precaution against the worst-case scenario that might happen to Kawaki. Amado deliberately made Kawaki feel he was stronger, but in fact, Amado did not completely. Instead, he gave time that would automatically return to its initial mode as a form of absolute eternal defense that Amado had said. Maybe apart from being a goal to make Kawaki be able to make Jura retreat, at least this strategy can be used as an anticipation so that no worse possibilities happen to Kawaki. Because again, if Kawaki dies against Jura, then Amado's goal of resurrecting his daughter will be in vain and finished. And as the final conclusion, guys, the scenario at the beginning about saving Shinki and Gaara, including the appearance of Hidari, will be an exception in Chapter 24, if this chapter will focus on the battle of Jura and Kawaki. And finally, this is only limited to predictions and analysis as a Boruto addict. But what do you personally think, guys? So thanks for watching, like and subs. I'm Nim. See you in the next week. Bye-bye, Databayo.